Good morning. We would like to welcome everybody, and we're going to start the Manatee County Port Authority agenda. We will call the meeting to order with the invocation by my great friend. And when I saw the name, I was very, very excited to see it. And I'll let Carlos do his part as far as welcoming you, but let us start with the invocation. Can everybody start? Stand.
If you would, bow your heads. Lord, you've entrusted us as stewards of your creation. Please guide the hearts of these men and women as they make their decisions. We seek you first in all they do together. We give you the port's business, the port's suppliers, the port's customers, and its workforce. May we be always mindful of their service. We confess that we are nothing without you and that our trust is in you completely. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll go right into audience introductions. I'll turn it over to you, Carlos.
Sorry?
I'll turn it over to you for audience introduction.
Thank you. Actually, we want to do audience introductions, Chairman? Yeah. No?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
Oops. Technology is great when it works. Thank you.
No, just audience introductions first. So you just tell them who you are, and then you come up later. There you go.
I'm Bo Hamrick from the Navy League. And that was an unplanned dramatic entrance.
He's right. He's very excited.
Jennifer Cowan, Port Council. Denise Stuffelbeam, Port Staff. Virginia Zimmerman's Port Staff.
Dave Sanford, Port Staff. Jim Jones, Bradenton Herald.
Jerry Ottier, famous Peppermint Patty.
Sharon Schellenberger from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, visiting Patty and Jerry.
Friendly neighbor on Pine Point Road, Peppermint Patty.
And here's Peppermint Patty.
George Eisenman, Port Staff.
Abby Lindekamp, Port Staff.
Sunshine Venable, Port Staff.
Matt Ennis, Anchor House.
Teresa Doherty, Port Staff.
Malcolm Edwards, Port Staff.
Charles Tillotson, Port Staff.
Stephen Kelly, Keller Manatee. Max Stewart, Bradenton Area EDC.
David St. Pierre, Port Staff.
Walter Sharp, retired troublemaker, Port Manatee.
Adrian Seba, FMT. Luke Quabble, FMT.
Susan Schroeder, Clerk Staff.
Sean Smith, Port Staff.
John Moore, Port Staff.
And now we will see if we have any public comment.
Right.
Anyone have any public comment? At this time, we will open it up for public comment. Okay, we'll close public comment. Now we'll turn it over to you.
No one on the phone either.
No one on the phone?
No.
It's public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you to welcome to the February meeting of the Port Authority. Appreciate you all, making the way up here. I think it's important that our community and our customers see the Port Authority as a body, as a government body. And I think it's beneficial where you all make decisions that are exclusively focused on the port. So with that, though, there comes a time where employees here in the sunshine that really, came down many years ago, like Walter Sharp, can get to retire. Walter has been here 35 years, but I'm going to have Sean Smith, his director, make the introduction and the retirement presentation. For the benefit of the Port Authority, I would like to pass a picture of Walter when he joined the port. Oh, yeah, there. Okay. Then you'll see Walter, what the port does to you, 35 years later.
I think I saw his picture in the post office.
Yeah, yes. That's where we got it from.
Now I play Santa Claus.
Good morning. This is a little bit of sadness and also gladness. I'm happy to see when these employees stay with the port for so long, but it's also a bad time when they have to leave us, especially someone like Walter. I mean, you got to beat him off. He don't want to. If it's juice vessel here, he's here. I don't care if he don't have legs, he's coming. And that's always been appreciated for us here at Port Manatee, because those are long hours, just 24 hours a day, and he's here to get that vessel in and out, and that's much appreciated. One of the things I love most about Walter is he tells you what he feels and thinks. I promise you. You don't have to ask and say, Walter, how you doing? Are you mad? He's going to let you know. He's what we call our eyes and ears here at Port Manatee. He sees everything, and that's been also much appreciated. This is a bit hard to see an employee go like this, but Walter, with all that being said, we're going to miss you, man. We really are. Easy now, don't do that to me. You want to say a few things? Walter, again, congratulations.
I don't think it ends that easy, to be honest with you. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Walter,
Commissioner Whitmore?
Walter, I know you're kind of upset now, but I thought you were going to tell us like it is on your last day.
I think you did.
Thank you for your service, and you're going to be missed. And just thank you. But if you feel like before you leave, you're welcome to come up. Okay.
Any more commissioner comments?
I will.
Please.
Walter, I know you did. You told us. I saw it. So we're going to miss you. Thank you. Thank you. And
again,
have fun.
And again, what I am realizing and just recognizing with your emotions is how committed you were to your job and how tough it is to say goodbye. But we honor you on this day, and we really thank you for your commitment to the port and your service to make sure you do your part for the port to be what it is today. Enjoy your retirement. Enjoy your retirement. Thank you, sir.
Well said, Mr. Chair.
Carlos?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two excellent speakers today. One is an organization, the Navy League, that has not been here before. In fact, last night we had a Propeller Club Navy League joint meeting, which went extremely well. It's an opportunity for the Navy League and the Propeller Club to come together and honor the ocean and honor the seamen and honor the servicemen that serve and protect our country. So without any further delay, I wanted to introduce Bo Merrick, who is the president of the Navy League War College Foundation. Now it's you. Oh, you're mic'd, huh? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen. It's a distinct pleasure to address you this morning, tell you a little bit about the Navy League, the Naval War College Foundation, what we do at the national level, what we do at the local level, and give you some examples of cooperation around the country with the Navy League and the Propeller Club, among others. And this presentation is a modified version of a presentation made to Congressman Stubbe and all other congressmen last summer in support of the federal fiscal year 22 Sea Services budget. So it originally covered in depth all the sea services. The Navy League is here to support all the sea services, as you'll see, the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine. So, without further ado, I guess I'll do this one. Here's our agenda this morning. First, a little bit about the Navy League of the United States. Our purpose is to make it clear that America is a maritime nation. Our mission, again, is supporting the needs of the sea services, the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine. By the way, we do heavy Coast Guard support on this coast because there aren't any naval bases, but there are 2,000 Coast Guardsmen a number of cutters and patrol boats, and an air station to the north. We support merchant marine programs very directly, as you'll see. There's a major event every year that I'll touch on toward the end of the presentation. That's up this year in Baltimore. It's the Sea Air Space Expo, quite a big event. The initial speakers are Chief of Naval Operations, Commandant of the Marine Corps, Commandant of the Coast Guard, Secretary of the Navy, and so forth. There's also a merchant marine component, as you'll see. And then lastly, I'll touch on an event coming up in April, which is a major event. It actually traces back to the Navy League Mobile Bay Council and Propeller Club up there. So, the Navy League was founded in 1902 by President Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. It actually helped to create the Great White Fleet that went around the world in 1907. We promote the need for strong sea services, all of them. It's a civilian organization with 180 local councils. I guess I'll stand here if you don't mind. 28,000 members worldwide. Our goal is to educate the public and elected officials on the importance of a strong maritime component for our national security, because as I always say, most people have never seen a Great Hull, and they don't know where all the stuff, or they're not mindful of all the things that come into this port and all the others, where it comes from. They just expect it to happen. Our goal is to educate the public and elected officials on the importance of a strong maritime component for our national security, and that manifestly includes the merchant marine and ports. We support and advocate for members of the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and the U.S. Flag Merchant Service. Again, America is a maritime nation. Our forward deployed forces give decision makers their most precious commodities, options, and time. Our nation's first line of defense is far from our shores, thanks to the forward presence of the sea services. Keeping the seas open for global commerce ensures global economic stability. I'm sure most of the public is not aware that 99% of overseas trade by tonnage is transported by sea. Our fleet is imperative to ensure capabilities for conflict deterrence. We always want to deter first if we possibly can. Forward presence, maritime security, freedom of navigation, humanitarian assistance, and disaster response. Often the latter, often kind of low profile and unsung, but a lot of that goes on. Now this is, again, from the congressional presentation. We were advocating for the support of specific bills and measures that we think are vital by sea service branch. For the merchant marine, we want to support the U.S. flag fleet by supporting the Jones Act, Food for Peace program, and the very important Energizing American Shipbuilding Program Act. So specifically, we ask that the Congress support the Jones Act, also known as the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, which is cabotage legislation. It requires ships traveling between U.S. ports to be U.S. flagged, American built, and crewed. It provides labor standards for U.S. flag mariners. It's necessary for national security because it provides a pool of mariners with standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping certification, and it provides militarily, I would say, vital rather than useful vessels. We ask that the Food for Peace and McGovern-Dole programs be funded with $2.2 billion annually, and a change from the current requirement is that 50% of that be carried by U.S. flagship. We would like to see that move to 75%. Very important, we ask that Congressman co-sponsor the Energizing American Shipbuilding Act. Thank you. This bipartisan bill would bolster our shipbuilding industrial base and overcome the current mariner shortfall by requiring a percentage of U.S. liquefied natural gas and crude oil exports to be shipped on U.S. flag ships. Here's some stats that are interesting. The Jones Act results in $154 billion in economic total output, $16 billion in tax revenue, $41 billion in annual wages, $72 billion added to the value of economic output, and the creation of, at the full end of the cascade, 650,000 jobs. Very important, tanker security program. This ties directly into naval readiness. Obviously, we don't have enough tankers in the fleet. Congress and the White House must work together to fund the tanker security program, starting with 10 ships, as authorized in the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act, but not funded. Based on the Maritime Security Program, the Tanker Security Program would provide a stipend in exchange for their commitment to be transferred to military command in time of conflict. There is a current shortfall of tankers to support refueling of American armed forces worldwide, according to the Maritime Administration. And MARAD is another organization that the Navy League works very closely with. Sorry, so this is a little bit crowded, but it's important. The Navy League's support for merchant marine national security needs. The strategic challenge, U.S. flagged merchant shipping is critical to resupply of forward deployed forces in the event of a conflict. Only U.S. flagged ships can be counted on if contested sea lanes must be transited. Now, we haven't had to do that since World War II. We are attempting to deter certain people from trying it, but it could happen. The current U.S. merchant marine fleet numbers 180 ships and is inadequate for projected needs in the event of war. Conversely, the Chinese merchant fleet now numbers 1,371 ships. In addition, China State Shipbuilding Corporation delivered 184 ships for a total of 16 million tons in 2021, exceeding the entire inventory of our deep-water U.S. merchant marine in just 1 year. The consequences of over-reliance on foreign vessels are now rippling across our nation's supply chain, as we all know, as American agriculture and manufacturing exports are stymied in port while foreign vessels take empty containers back to Asia for the next haul. So that's the problem. What's the solution? Expand government cargo preferences to create greater demand for U.S. flagged ships. For example, the Food for Peace program, which provides American agricultural products to people in need around the world, currently requires that only 50% of the cargo be exported on U.S. flagged ships. The percentage of Food for Peace cargo committed to U.S. flagged ships should be increased to 75% threshold previously required. We recommend the implementation of bipartisan legislation for viable new commercial cargo preference programs. For example, the Energizing American Shipbuilding Act could result in the construction of dozens of new vessels. We ask that the Jones Act fleet be expanded for coastwide services with dual-use vessels, that is, privately owned commercial ships with military utility-installed national defense features. Dual-use vessels would alleviate congestion, road wear, and pollution along the I-5, I-95, and I-10 corridors in peacetime by carrying domestic 53-foot tractor trailers and boxes along these American marine highways. The dual-use vessels would be quickly available to support a major deployment of military equipment through participation in the voluntary intermodal sea left agreement program. Now, this is sourced recently. Admiral James Foggo, who is the dean of the Navy League's Center for Maritime Strategy, wrote a longer version of this article in The Hill on January 26, and I commend it to you all. It's entitled, "How to Lose the Next War." Well, we don't want to do that, but we have been warned. So, again, at the congressional presentation, we asked for the provision of at least $30 billion in Navy shipbuilding and conversion budget, and that's what keeps ships at sea in first-class readiness. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many ships you've got if a third of them don't work right, or their systems do not work right, pardon me. We asked the support for the Marine Corps Commandant's guidance for a leaner, more agile Corps, increase the Coast Guard's operation and support budget by 5% annually, enforce and protect the cargo preference laws of the Jones Act, as mentioned, co-sponsor the Energizing American Shipbuilding Act, support ratification of in the Senate of the UN Convention on the Sea, and avoid the use of continuing resolutions, which unfortunately we are careening into right now, although there's some hope they'll pass a budget by March 11. Continuing resolutions are extremely bad for the armed forces. They lead to start, stop, and program funding, maintenance, readiness training. It's a cascade. In the last 6 or 8 years, we had a first-class, first-line fast attack submarine tied up at a dock for 4 years waiting a routine refit because the money wasn't authorized. That doesn't happen in the Chinese Navy, I can promise you. Again, a little bit crowded, but this is important. I've mentioned, so these are opportunities to learn more about the merchant marines, ports, and maritime national security. I don't think this will be a virtual event, but if you're in the area at Baltimore at the beginning of August, these are the segments that will bear on the International Shipping and, or rather, Merchant Marine, International Shipping and Maritime Transit Solutions. Speakers are Mr. Michael Roberts, SVP of Government Relations at Navy League, and Mr. Kevin Tarharski, Associate Administrator for Strategic Sealift, MARAD. Now, mentioned a minute ago, this backup, dual-use vessels and this kind of thing. You may recall, if you're old enough, that back in 1990 when we had to mobilize for the first Gulf War, they were pulling Victory ships out of mothballs and calling back 75-year-old retired mariners because nobody knew how to run a steam plant anymore. But that was a 6-month or so mobilization over uncontested sea lanes. We don't have that luxury. We can't assume that we're going to have that luxury now. Attendees, okay, and then this is important, Mr. John Portofino will speak. He is the port's envoy to the White House Supply Chains Disruptions Task Force, which is attempting to get a handle on what's going on. Attendees may participate in our supported caucuses, and I called out the pertinent maritime Merchant Marine Caucus, shipbuilding, depot, and industrial facilities, Coast Guard, Navy education, Sea Cadets. And then we are having a major event in April, and my other hat is Regional Director for Southwest Florida for the Naval War College Foundation, which funds about 30% of the operating budget of the Naval War College. This event will have as speakers Admiral Scott Swift, former Commander-in-Chief Pacific Fleet, and Professor Peter Dutton, Center for the Naval Warfare Studies of the Naval War College, and the subject is the China threat. This is a great example how this developed of why cooperation between the Propeller Club and the Navy League and the Naval War College Foundation is important. This actually traces back to 2015 when the Navy League Mobile Bay, working with the Propeller Club up there, hosted a similar major event on ISIS at the time. These gentlemen are quite impressive speakers, and the topic is, of course, front burner. So thank you very much for bearing with me as I cough my way through this. And it's a distinct pleasure and honor to visit with all of you.
Excuse me, Mr. Hamrick, we have a couple of questions from some commissioners, sir.
Please.
Commissioner Serby will go first.
Yes, thank you very much for being here and for the presentation. So before today, I didn't know about your organization, the Navy League of the United States. And I have a son in the Navy.
You do?
I do. I have a son in the
Tell
Navy.
them membership is open to active duty sailors now. $25 a year, folks.
And I'm going to tell him about that. He's stationed in Bahrain. My question to you is, right now we're seeing an international conflict about to converge in Ukraine. And can you tell us, what is your role in coordinating and supporting the U.S. Navy? Can you talk about that a little bit?
The Navy Leagues to support?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it has to do with making sure that the funding is there with specificity so that, well, for example, now here's the good news, because there's it tends to be only negative news that makes the national press. So we had some problems back in 2017, 2 destroyer collisions. As it turned out, the worst one, the Fitzgerald, was just a cascade of poor maintenance, ridden hard, put away wet, not enough time. That ship had, within a month before, been on first line anti-missile patrol in the Yellow Sea on the other side, on the west side of Japan. So a lot of things have changed since that happened. I'll also tell you that we have some very advanced systems that work very well, and that would be the SM-6 and SM-3 Block 2 missile systems, Aegis systems. Those cruisers and destroyers can just about do anything, and we have 10,000 tubes in the fleet. So there are a lot of good things going on. Again, I guess what we do to support the Navy more than anything else is make people do not know, they don't know a couple of things. There's not a real consciousness of national security needs on a day-to-day basis because we have over 50% of the population that was born after 1981. They don't remember the Cold War at all. And they have not had to serve, they've not been conscripted. If they join up, they join up voluntarily. It's a different ball game. So the Navy has a Aegis Ashore battery in Romania, which is intended to deter or destroy incoming Iranian missiles, as we also have an Aegis cruiser or destroyer in rotation at Rota in Spain, that's the secondary part of that same setup. Mr. Putin doesn't like that. That's part of the component, but so far it's been effective, and this may be saber-rattling, it may not be, but it's also kind of a strategic distraction in a way, in my opinion, because I think the bigger problem is China.
Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, Carlos, thank you so much for bringing him in here, and thank you for your presentation. This was very reminiscent of the 2016 election, right? It's why ultimately a lot of people voted for President Trump. Doesn't sound like we got accomplished what we hoped we would have over those 4 years. So my question is now, I'm going to say, what is the position of the Biden administration? I'm sure there's lots of lip service, but my question would be, what is the strategy that the Biden administration is laying out to keep us on an even playing field with China and to bring our Navy into a state of readiness, strictly from a national security standpoint?
Well, in the Trump administration, a comprehensive national defense strategy was laid out and I think largely funded, and a lot of good things have happened in all the services since then. However, we have problems within the Department of Defense in terms of speed of procurement acquisition, a risk-averse testing culture, which General Hyten, Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, outgoing, just spoke to in detail about 3 or 4 months ago. He noted that back in the 60s, our first reconnaissance satellite that worked was Spider or Spy 14. The reason it was number 14 is the first 13 didn't work and failed. We put Polaris to sea in a nuclear submarine in 5 years, between 1954 and 59. We went to the moon in 10 years in the 60s. I personally think that a big part of the problem is there's no sense of urgency. And you can detect a mentality of, well, what can we sell? What can we put in the budgetary process that will actually get funded, rather than we need this. We need a lot more ships in the Navy. We need a lot more ships in the Merchant Marine. Any kind of financial incentive that would create more merchant hulls is militarily useful. The Chinese they set out on a conscious strategy 30 years ago to return to the sea. They own a lot of ports and container facilities around the world, and they are actively testing and training merchant crews to be able to launch cruise missiles and ballistic missiles from containers at sea, which is another thing your friendly Navy is watchful and working on. I should not fail to mention that immediately after our presentation to Congressman Stubbe, he signed on as the co-sponsor of the Shipyards Act. It was the first co-sponsor. That act passed. Let me just give you a very quick wrap, which I meant to do. So I went through what we asked for. This is what's actually happened so far as of yesterday. The Navy shipbuilding and conversion budget, we requested $30 billion. Congress approved $28 billion. While the authorized amount is below our request, it is still a significant amount for the Navy shipbuilding and conversion budget, so we consider this a victory. Marine Corps, our ask was just to support the Commandant in his efforts to divest from legacy systems in order to invest in light transportation and long-range missile fires. Those priorities were included in the Defense Authorization Act, so we consider this a victory. Coast Guard, we requested a 5% increase in operations and support budget, and Congress authorized 6%. This was a major victory for the Coast Guard. The Energizing American Merchant Marine, we did not receive the $2.2 billion we requested in Food for Peace funds or the increased cargo preference threshold of 75%. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer, but it didn't happen. The Energizing American Shipbuilding Act is still attracting co-sponsors, but has not yet received a full floor vote. We did receive the $60 million requested for the tanker security program. All of the authorizations that we achieved are waiting the final budget to be approved, so they're still in CR land at the moment, but we expect Congress to pass a budget before the House CR deadline of March 11th. One can but hope. So that's what we do at the macro level, if you will. I didn't get to mention here in Sarasota Manatee Council and in our Suncoast Council to the south, we have a lot of active support for youth programs. All the JROTC units, Sea Cadets, Young Marines. We try to raise good citizens in all of that, and I think it works. The cadets are just great. I think those of you that were at the meeting last night saw that. They're dedicated, and all of us, we do everything we can to support them. We do, again, appreciate what Congressman Stubbe did last summer in supporting that Shipyards Act.
Well, I would just finish by saying thank you for all that your organization does for our sailors, and thank you personally for what you're doing for our sailors and for our country.
Well, thank you very much. We look forward to a very, very close working relationship with Port Manatee and the Propeller Club. I mean, it is developing deeply and rapidly, and there's a lot that we can do together.
I have a few more questions. So
Yes.
Commissioner Ball.
Oh, okay. I grew up in Tidewater, Virginia. I grew up in a very strong military town, all the forces, mostly Navy, as you know. I would be remiss if I didn't say that probably most of us in this room are listening to the press right now and everything going on. As Commissioner Survey, I think, mentioned with Ukraine. It is a very unnerving time, I think, for most Americans at this point, because our country is seeing a lot of issues, a lot of problems. We are not moving forward in a good direction, it seems. Everything, the inflation is hitting all of us continuously every day. So I couldn't help but think, with my history of where I grew up and how things were done at the time, I'm sitting back and I can't help but think about, I'm sitting in a port. We have ports in California and other areas that can't get the supplies ashore. It's hard. I mean, I'm in the jewelry business, retail, fine jewelry. I'm telling, we're even affected with trying to get inventory. So it's something that we are really struggling with in this country. What concerns me about that is that I know that it would not surprise me if we weren't in a major situation here very soon with our military. And I am concerned about whether or not we're in a position to be able to get our service people their needs if they are called into a warlike situation. How are they going to get their supplies? And the other thing is, I know you mentioned ships. I know we need ships. I hear things like that all the time, and have people that discuss it with me. How long does it take to build a ship? I mean, it's not done overnight, that's for sure.
Well, it's not a lengthy process to build merchant ships. That's maybe a couple of years. Warships, well, we are pumping out destroyers at Bath Iron Works and I think over in Mississippi pretty regularly for designs that are already up and running. You can go on this gets back to what I said earlier, sense of urgency. How about we increase that pace? This was not part of my presentation, but one of the major areas of emphasis both in the Navy has created a 10th Fleet, which is it's basically a cyber command, cyber and counter cyber warfare command. Naval War College has a major cyber innovation and policy institute that is all about protecting critical infrastructure. We talk about moving supplies, people, equipment. This involves, we got to get them to the ports first. Exactly. In the event of a major confrontation, we would expect certain logistical problems, shall we say, and this is something that anyone connected with a port or anything else that is a must-work piece of critical infrastructure needs to do a deep dive into this and step back and do the blank paper exercise and say, are our systems really, first of all, capable of withstanding an attack? Secondly, what's our resiliency plan? What's Plan C? And the resources are out there. And I will send you a link to a major, one of the trustees has a nonprofit organization at the War College Foundation, or that assists the War College Analysis and Resiliency Center. They've got a lot of answers. In 2019, the Naval War College conducted a major war game, which is, they're famous for doing this back over 100 years. The joke in the old Navy was the Pacific War was won on the floor of the War College in the 30s. They executed some of the plans that were gamed out. So in 19, they ran a war game called Defend Forward, Critical Infrastructure Defense. And it posited a Chinese cyber attack on our financial and energy systems. Game had over 100 participants from all levels of government and industry, including CEOs from the financial world and from energy companies. And it was a good exercise. It needs to be done at state level, and that suggestion has been made. So I think broadly, you talk about all these things that are disturbing that we see. It would be good if leadership at some level cut through the morass of distracting and divisive things. When you think about it from a strategic standpoint, our enemies are gleefully, I mean, the Chinese are working a comprehensive strategy. They want to be the global masters of cyber and AI by 2030. And as Dr. Dimchek says up there in her presentation, there is no room for freedom in a deeply cybered world. That's what it boils down to. And we need a Manhattan Project level of effort to address that. I hope it will be recognized. And if we decide, the history of America lately, or for a long time, has been, if we actually see an objective and unify around it, it gets done. And again, this division and attacks on national cohesion they're an attack, just the same way a kinetic attack would be. Eventually, you get the same result. And don't forget, Sun Tzu said, the Chinese master strategist, the supreme art of warfare is to conquer your enemy without firing a shot.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what they're working on.
Yeah, one more question.
Oh yeah, you can put your bottle down and get comfortable. This is great.
Well, and this is awesome. This is very informative. We have one more, and I think. I guess I can let him go. All right.
Go ahead. No, James, you're next. Great.
Yeah, and mine may end up being more of a comment. Thank you so much for being here. I do remember the Cold War, and I remember some of the dynamics behind it, and I see way too many similarities to what we're facing right now with China. The truth is, there was a time period between World War I and World War II, and World War I was just known as the Great War. It wasn't known as World War I. And I think we're in that time period, or were 5 years ago, 6 years ago in that time period. I think that Cold War II is here. We are fighting it right now.
In our own country.
There are so many similarities because I see the strength of the American people, the strength of the American economy, our spirit, our determination, I do not believe can be deterred. One of the differences that I see every day is that we did not have a complicit media and major corporations working against us during the first Cold War. No one would have imagined going to the store and buying goods from the USSR, right? And no one would imagine, United States corporations, major corporations, politicians, sports teams, kowtowing to the Soviet Republic, doing their bidding, avoiding any of the shortcomings of the teachings, the political beliefs, the culture, the militarism that they saw from the USSR, but you see it now with China. They're avoiding it. I think that the motivation mostly is money and partially belief system. We need to remember what makes our country great. It's a belief in democracy. It's a belief in freedom. It's a belief in capitalism. We have to see that threat clearly. And those that are among us that are choosing the easy route of landing a big payday over supporting their country need to change their ways quickly, or those paydays will come to an end sooner rather than later. Let me be clear though, I have no doubts in the effectiveness and ability of the United States military and the people to rise to any challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me just mention one thing, because that was an important comment. Yes, it is a new Cold War. There are many similarities. However, in some respects, it's already in a much worse situation, because the Soviet Union never penetrated the United States, in the continental United States, businesses and institutions like we have been penetrated by China. And this is true in all of Western civilization, because, as you will remember, when the Soviet Union fell, right after we annihilated Saddam Hussein's forces that were all using Soviet doctrine and had Soviet advisors in the air defenses in Baghdad, and it didn't work. And they saw the stealth, and they realized, this was about 3 years after a kid flew a Cessna 150 and landed in Red Square, and it's like, if he can do that, what can they do? So the Chinese saw that, and they adopted a policy under Deng Xiaoping of peaceful rise. Well, we're going to play nice in the sandbox nations, only they're the kind that will take the Tonka truck toy and bash the other kid in the head. They are ruthless. It's a completely different culture. They don't really understand us. That's part of the problem. They don't understand that were we to be provoked overtly enough, there would be the kind of response that you've just mentioned. And believe me, they know what the Navy, for example, can do if we were really unleashed and if they really tried something. Carriers are not sitting ducks, I promise you. Just to mention one thing. I find it, so anyway, that was 30 some odd years ago, and then when they felt that they were strong enough, they started breaking out of all international norms. What is this? The moment I saw this claim to the whole South China Sea, all the way to Malaysia and Philippine territorial waters, like, no, that's been established for 300 years. They defy us. They defy the world. That's just for starters. I mean, what you have to do, my dad fought the Chinese in Korea in 5th Marines. They will take casualties. They don't care how many of their own people they expend. I think, and they only respond to clear messages of resolve. That's what creates deterrence. And I think there were some messages that were being sent in the Trump administration that were pretty strong. One thing I would like to see would be the 300,000 Chinese student visas that are extant in this country canceled right now and those people deported. Many of them are officers in the Chinese armed forces, particularly the graduate students. We've had them spying at NAS Key West. We've had them spying in Jacksonville at the Naval Air Station. Well, of course, now you've got my blood up, but no, truly, we have to, and some of these, Senator Hawley or Senator Cotton said something along the lines that you averred to last year. Some of these tech giant leaders are going to have to decide where their loyalties lie.
That's right.
Because, for example, Google works very closely with the Chinese government to do this micromanagement, cyber monitoring of every step you take and every breath you take. It's wrong, it's un-American, it's anti-freedom, and this is going to resolve in one of two ways, maybe three ways. In China, regime behavioral change, or regime change, or some level of warfare. And the danger now is they are so emboldened that the potential for an incident to occur, or a test, at some point they're going to probe in strength and see how we react. They're going to do something out in the Pacific that we've said is a red line. They threatened Japan too. I mean, they threatened Japan with nuclear attack last year. They're the bully on the block. And as you probably know, bullies eventually have to be dealt with.
We have one more commissioner. This is the last comment we'll take on this subject.
I still have some water left.
Okay. So sort of, one, I do agree with everything Commissioner Satcher said and that you've said so far. My question would be, while attempting to stay in our lane, what can our port and our Port Authority do, one, to encourage, increasing the capacity and the size of our fleet, and, to ensure that we don't have Chinese nationals that could potentially be spying on us on port property?
Well, I think that I think being aware is the first step, and you have to double check and tighten all your security procedures. I would say this is true for all the 15 ports in Florida, but I mean, this one is situated adjacent to a major city. And I actually don't think that this is the most likely. Espionage is one thing. Sabotage is another on a very large scale. Now, there was a RAND Corporation study done back in 2004 that posited a container being offloaded at the Port of Long Beach that had a 10 kiloton nuclear weapon in it that went off. So that was a ground burst. And actually, this was, I'm surprised this even got out, because it was a command post exercise under the second Bush administration for cabinet secretaries. It was a 72-hour study of what would actually happen. Well, it turned out at the time that 50% of all U.S. Gasoline was refined out there, and similar for aviation gasoline, and it went on right down the line. Plus, one of the things that had to be recommended was the Navy and Coast Guard will stop all shipping 100 miles offshore until further notice. So you see the economy would seize if anything like that happened. By the way, the Hiroshima weapon was 13 kilotons, so 10 is significant. There are other vectors of attack that are more likely and which would be deniable. So, and I must tell you, that hasn't happened. That was in 2004. And the reason that it hasn't happened, it traces back to your friendly Navy. We monitor all approaching ship traffic. We have some other measures that I won't get into, but so far so good. But again, it's part of its mentality. Let's not just cruise along in the, I would say, peacetime, nothing could possibly, peace and prosperity is the natural order of things. It's not the natural order of things. We are, the United States and the other Western democracies are a minority by far of the world's population. All the rest of them are governed in some manner or form in an authoritarian manner. I had the experience of being down in Cuba in 2015 in Eastern Cuba on a mission support trip. And it is not the way it's portrayed in the American media at all. It's grinding existence. Yeah, you can't buy an aspirin in the store, you can't buy a tin of Vienna sausages, you can buy rum, but they get their ration of beans and rice once a month, and they're allowed to have chickens and goats, pigs. It's a criminal offense to have beef in your refrigerator if you've got one. But if you have a child, you get one extra chicken leg and one extra chicken breast each month for protein. And I could go on. That's 90 miles offshore.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will transition now to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
10-minute break.
Hard act to follow.
Very hard act.
I think our next presenter is up to the task. Of course, the subject is quite different. It's about commerce and business as opposed to national security and the Navy, as well as the other armed forces. So I want to introduce Steve Kelly. There we go. You know, in about 3 years ago, so Carver Maritime came to Port Manatee and essentially made a RFQ bid to take over the north side of the port. And they've been there ever since, very effectively, very positively. It helped fill a gap that would have been hard to let's say, to utilize otherwise. And they're, I think, prospering. Steve will tell us further. Prospering quite well and putting it to good use.
Well, that was a very impressive presentation. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I learned a lot. Yeah, we do live in a great country, and we need to keep it that way. So that's my 2 cents on that. I've been blessed to be moved here when I was in my early 20s, and I've been here for the last 30 years, and I couldn't be more impressed with this country. I love it. I'd never leave it, and just listening to you today and the pride on the board, watching your guys' eyes about how proud you are of this country means everything. So on that note, I'll start my presentation. So we did, hello? What we did was we decided we were looking for expansion 3 years ago as we were in a company-wide growth mode, and we looked around all over, and we just found that Manatee was a really good spot. It had a lot of potential commerce opportunities, and I'll give you a little history on how we got here. So our slogan and our feel is we're the pioneers of the solutions of land and sea. So we like to develop not only just the commerce of bringing the ships and stevedoring, but we like to develop the property, we like to develop customers and give them opportunities to grow. So we're built in 3 legs. One is our construction leg, our other one is maritime, and our third one is sand and gravel. So with all 3 of these, we've been able to integrate a lot of our tenants, giving them opportunities. So if we want to build a building, we know how to build a building. If we want to get them to offload vessels, we can bring them in, offload the vessels, and we can even supply the aggregates and the materials to do so. Our first original port we started was in Port of Queenans, which is just 10 miles south of Albany, New York, 90 miles from one of the largest cities in the world. And we have 425 acres. We're like a big playground for New York City. So we supply, sorry, how do I go back? There we go. So yeah, so we have a 30-foot of draft, so not quite as big as here. The Hudson River Channel is our limiting factor. But we have made it where we, as you can see here, where we do a lot of commercial activity, meaning we do bridge assemblies, we're getting into the offshore wind. So we're not just looking for bulk cargo to come in, go over the dock and go. We look to try to develop and make more project-related activity. So this is what the ports looked like in 2003 when we purchased the port. It was an old abandoned brick plant. Our owner, his gift is vision. So as we get into the conversation later on, I'll explain to you, he sees the same vision here. But he looked at this and he felt like this was a diamond in the rough. Well, we've turned that into, there was 100 jobs there in 1991. It went out of business in 2001. Today, we have 475 people working there on site, and we are being anticipated about another 275 going to be there within the next 12 to 18 months. This was a town that was devastated. This was a town that had was run down, the buildings, it was just a disaster. But with the vision and the hard work by all our team members, we were able to turn it around. This is what it looks like today. That's the Tappan Zee Bridge. We built the brand new Tappan Zee Bridge. We built a HRSG for Bridgeport. We did 2 of them, one for Seawarren, Connecticut, and Seawarren, New Jersey, and Bridgeport, Connecticut. Pier 55 was a really unique project in Manhattan. It was a philanthropist decided he made this little unique park in the middle of New York City. How do you do that when there's no more land, right? So he's seen the vision, took those piles and rebuilt the piles and decided to make these little concrete pods. Basically, if you look here in this picture, you can kind of see these piles here and that gray piece of concrete. That there is a pedal. So there was five pedals to make this pod, and then a concrete sleeve went down over the piles, and they built Little Island. So if you ever get a chance to Google Little Island, we did 176 of these pods by barge and floated them down, and then they set them on the piles and created one of the most beautiful parks in New York City. So those are the type of things that we like to find to create our business opportunities, that just not necessarily turning cargo. This is what our port looks like today. We have over 1,000,002 square foot under roof. We've built every one of these buildings. Every building on this side of the road wasn't there in 2014. This was an old mushroom plant on this side. So the brick factory was here, and the mushroom plant was a very little tiny building right here where they grew mushrooms. And they went out of business in 2001 also, lost 220 jobs. We've now put all these warehouses in. We did all the construction ourselves. We have every ounce of square foot is occupied currently today. We just completed a 73,000 square foot building that can fit an 820 metric ton travel lift. It's 100 feet from here to here and 100 feet doors. We're currently, we have some offshore wind components are going to be fabricated in the building. So we got going in Charleston, in Queens, everything was going great. So then we decided we wanted to go to Charleston. We found that was the next stepping stone. So today we have over 300,000 square feet of indoor space. We started with 20. We originally went in with 5 acres, and now we have over 40 acres that we're occupying. We bring in probably about 40 ships a year, and we have a barge slip where we do a lot of midstream operations in Charleston, where we offload scrap and bring it up into Nucor for manufacturing. Braden Point was another facility, was an old abandoned power plant that went out of business, and we're in the process of developing that into a port. Today we're doing about a ship a month with exporting scrap over to Turkey, and we're continuing to work through some offshore wind opportunities and a lot of manufacturing possibilities there as well. Calgary, Canada is our newest port. We bought a quarry where they had a dock, and we're exporting the stone into Charleston, and potentially we would be looking to do that into here as well. That quarry is really nice because you don't have any roadway to get to the dock, but we have warehousing, there's rail, so there's a lot of potential there as well. It's the actual closest Canadian port to U.S. soil. It's literally just across the way from Maine in Bayside. And today, Calgary, the Manatee Dream, we believe we'd like to take the same vision and continue that north development that we are continuing to rehab the old buildings. We put a lot of money into them. We're in the process of going to get into that a little later, but kind of fixed up all the conveyors, started to develop a little more land. There was a lot of land there that wasn't really being used, so we were able to do some construction, clean it up really nice, and utilize a lot more of the square footage because, the value, as all the stevedores here in Manatee will tell you, the value's in the real estate. Real estate is the most important thing in our business today because, as we're talking about the difficulty of commerce, right? Getting the ships, but getting real estate near the water to handle this is the most difficult task we have. I can't tell you how many times we have to pick up the phone and say, unfortunately, sorry, we don't have this space to store your product. We'd love to take your ship, but we don't have the space. And I think that's something that we all need to kind of think about as a country because, we put so many, and I go back into that park situation, but we turn so many good piers into parks and unusable for commercial activity that, it really has created a problem because the trucking is becoming so difficult, right? To get anywhere by truck, it's so difficult. So if you take all your good docks like New York City had, I can't tell you, used to have probably 100 docks. Today, 98 of those have turned into parks. No more industrial, no more, it's unbelievable. South Brooklyn Marine Terminal was the only one that they were able to kind of rekindle, and there was a lot of fight to keep it, and that's actually starting to develop a lot of work, and it will be very busy for the offshore wind as well. Because I think the world is starting to realize that, because now with offshore wind, all of a sudden the country is realizing we don't have the infrastructure to handle all these things. The Europeans are coming here and saying, you guys don't have the dock capacity, you don't have the space capacity, and now all of a sudden we're scrambling to try to find that. And I think we're going to see that same activity come down here to the Manatee world and the Gulf, and you're going to see offshore wind become, I'd say maybe in another 5 to 10 years, but you're going to see that growth come further south. It's going to come down the South Carolina coast, and it'll come all the way down to the Gulf, in my opinion. So right now, on 22, we're bringing in salt, we're bringing in scrap, fertilizer, exporting scrap. We have clinker going to be coming in towards the end of the year. And this is what our vision, so our owner, his vision, was when we drove around here and we call it the boneyard, but we looked at that little area in the back left corner that was very undeveloped, but had all the potential in the world. And we're in the process right now trying to put in some warehousing. We're trying to get permits, and we believe that space will create more commerce, and we won't have to pick up that phone and say, sorry, we can't take your cargo. So we believe by making the investment, putting in a bulk storage building is going to create more opportunities for commerce in Port of Manatee for all of us. And the other one is we have a 48,000 square foot building that's in the process of getting the permits for an existing tenant who will move in there as soon as we get the building up. So the old grinding mill that was kind of defunct, we found a tenant that's in the process of investing over $8 million to rebuild the grinding mill, which will be a great opportunity. It's going to create probably an additional 10 vessels a year, maybe more. He will be starting construction on the repairing of the facility within the next month, and he anticipates to have the first mill completed by early September. And then once he gets the first one operational, gets all the bugs out of it, he'll start the construction on the second one. So that's kind of a little snapshot of who we are. If you have any questions or any ideas, we're wide open. We love being part of the Port of Manatee team, and we're looking forward to many years of growth here.
Thank you for your presentation. Got a few questions, Commissioner Servia?
Yes, I just want to thank you for being here and telling us about your company. And while you were presenting, I was kind of looking at a few things that you mentioned, the little island. What a creative imagination somebody had to pull that off. I've been to New York many times. I've never been there, but it's on my list next time I go.
You have to go. It's really impressive. And what was really neat was not one of those pods are the same. So these pods, there's 5, but every single one of them was different. And they came in by truck, and we had to put them all together because you couldn't transport them. So we had to stainless steel weld, which was extremely difficult, and then had to caulk them, and then it was so important, the integrity of the concrete, to make sure that you didn't twist them, that everything was done very safe, and yeah, it's an absolutely phenomenal project. It was great to be part of. And actually, the company we partnered with was Reeks Marine, who actually has been, when we created that little barge area here for where we store the barges, Reeks Marine came here, so I mean, they did a tremendous amount of work here at the Port of Manatee because of our partnership. They knew we were here, and I think we had a great revenue stream. They had a lot of barges at the berth for dockage and so forth, so it was a great, so they're a great partner of ours, and they kind of, we like partners. We like to follow each other, and when relationships are good, you continue to develop them.
Yeah, we like partnerships too. Yeah, thank you. And I see you've been here since 2018 in Manatee, and what a strong company you are with an 8% match. Who's heard of that lately? An 8% 401k match. So my question to you is, are you having difficulty in these times of hiring employees? And I know the answer is probably yes, because everyone is. But when I look at your website, you have so much to offer those people. You're very competitive.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, we are finding it extremely difficult. You know, coming out of the pandemic changed everything. A lot of people just don't want to come to work. They want to work from home. Our business, from the office staff all the way, is hands-on. We believe in order to be successful, everybody's got to be there in the think tank. Everybody's got to be grinding. I know people think these Zoom calls are great, but the reality is you're not getting the same effectiveness. People are drifting, they're not paying attention, they're not focused, and so we're continuing to look for that person that still wants to come into the office, or you know, get in a machine and get in a loader, and it's extremely difficult. And you know, until you teach the younger generation that it's okay to still work with your hands, we're struggling, because I think that's part of the problem, is we're not getting to them early enough, getting them trades, getting them taught, you know, and then by the time they're 22, 24, and they kind of waffled around school, now it's almost very late to get into a trade. So we're finding that's the hardest part, to get good labor.
Yes, thank you for saying that, and I've heard that from a lot of other companies, and there is a big effort in Manatee County to promote the trades in the high schools and teach our kids what is available. So I hope that you can be a part of that too.
Absolutely.
I'd love to connect to you. Thank you.
All right, any more questions from commissioners? And again, sir, thank you for your presentation, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And now we will go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. Would like to have you consider the approval of the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. And do we have to open this up for public comment? Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? We do not have public comment. We'll close it. And we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Not opposed. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. That concludes the consent agenda. We're going to move on to, with your concurrence, to board director comments. And as you can tell by Steve's comments, it's really about partnering. The port needs to choose good partners, and we have. And you know, with your support, that's what we're doing. It's a multiplier. It's a business multiplier. We can't do it on our own. We need to bring private equity, private investment to grow the port, not just, you know, let's say on a certain curve, but exponentially. The impact is huge, and the opportunities are huge, even though they're facing the hiring challenges that hopefully will correct itself in the next few years, and then the port can even grow further. I'll be brief, though. I'll make sure that we stay on time and you can all get to your next meeting, which is not too long from now. 1:30. Okay. Okay.
That was good.
Right there? Okay, all right. So, yeah, it moved a little too fast. So, you know, one of our latest commodities is yachts, you know, float on, float off, or, you know, load on, load off. And recently we received for a local marine distributor of yachts. They choose where they buy the yachts from. We don't. And the customers choose where the yachts come from, but we are able to handle it very well, very effectively, and it's a growing business for the port. And yachts, of course, are made everywhere in the world. If China doesn't work for them in the future, I'm sure they'll be doing it in Italy or France or the UK or Holland. Let's watch a quick little video we did for them. We have reserved one for each of you.
All right, I'll settle for one.
want to thank our communications department, though, for holding the camera for 24 hours. They got really, really tired, but
Carlos, what about, you and I met with Carmine Galati
right.
a while back, and they were getting their yachts made all over the world.
Correct.
And then they were putting them together at the big place in Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
I mean, they are selling all over
the
world now.
Yeah.
Is there any way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we can, and we continue to and want to. These are for MarineMax, which is a national distributor of yachts.
Okay.
However, this, this example of our yacht handling capabilities and our stevedores' yacht handling capabilities will serve as an example for others now that the port has the expertise to handle yachts.
And maybe we could meet with Carmine and bring him out here. He's a lifelong friend, but he at one point had done a few things here. Maybe a couple yachts have come, but I think it would be an opportunity, especially since he's right at the tip of Anna Maria.
Marine Industries is a huge, employer for the whole state of Florida, and this again will give us that opportunity to continue to expand our marine industries. I know that Max Stewart from the EDC is here. I know that's one of his goals, to expand marine industries and the employment it creates, including having the port here is a great benefit because we have the capability to literally take the boat, the yacht, from the ship onto the water or onto land and then to its final destination. As you know already, we're handling Chiquita. Recently, Chiquita decided to come on with Del Monte, also to come on their own with ships. So now we have both Del Monte and Chiquita coming into the port. It's really, I think, a testament to the port's ability to handle fruits and vegetables effectively, safely, and without any issues in the supply chain. Because you can have maybe a television set or recording equipment off the shores of California for 5 or 6 or 10 weeks. You can't do that with fruits and vegetables. So you have to move it expeditiously. It has to be in and out and on the shelf store. So now when you pick up Chiquitas, likely they're coming right here from the port. So thank you all, and Chiquita and Publix thanks you, because they're the ones who handle the most. So I think it's an opportunity to really show what the port can do. Of course, Ash Grove, one of our tenants at the port, decided to invest $8 million in equipment to handle additional cement imports to meet the growing demand. And Commissioner Satcher was here and was helpful in, as well with Commissioner Van Ostenbridge. And we had, which I think is Satcher Van Ostenbridge, right? Yeah. And so, we were able to do the ribbon cutting on the equipment, $8 million. It's going to run almost on every ship. And it's helpful in terms of, again, meeting the demand for expansion and construction, residential and commercial. So now that cement does not need to travel much further and lowers the cost of construction. We had kind of a very positive human interest stories that one of our tenants, again, World Direct Shipping, rescued a sailor at sea between Mexico and our shores, and the Mexican consul was personally here to award World Direct Shipping an appreciation award, for doing that kind of rescue. It's not uncommon for shipping lines, both cruises and cargo, to find stranded sailors at sea. So, this one just happened to be at the right place at the right time and was able to save a life.
In a cooler.
Well, we went up to Tallahassee through the Florida Ports Council, to make our case for continued expansion and contribution from state dollars to the cause. I think every year, we are up there trying to make sure that through FESTED and other state programs, we emphasize the need for expansion of the ports. And the governor, as you all know especially, has been very supportive in making sure that we get additional attention, telling California and other shippers and other states that we're open for business, and we sure are. So, that's really making a good, very, very good statement to the shipping industry. And that ends my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioner comments on this? Again, great work, Carlos. I think the next part of our meeting is commissioner comments, so we will start. Are you finished, Carlos?
Actually, wait a minute. Sorry. Okay, no, I made a mistake. So, I want to go back to this slide. So, Seaport Manatee now, we're looking to soft start to kind of move into the seaport part of the Port Manatee,
Right.
to kind of further identify that we're not port, we're not the jail. Thank you, Commissioner Whitmore. We're not the jail, that we are truly a seaport. That will, I think, further help identify us. Again, the steps we're taking, we're going a lot on social media, on our website, changing the name of the port on our emails, so it will be a full rollout of our new name. And now, I'm done. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
And now we will go to commissioner comments.
You are so right, because for years, everybody said, I've been at the port, and I'm thinking they were the port, but not at the jail. So I'm so glad that we're finally separating that, and I don't even know why the port came up as where the jail is. I mean, I know it's because it's next to it, so it's good that you're actually defining it finally.
Are those your commissioner comments?
Yeah, that's
How you
it.
doing? Commissioner Van Osten?
I don't have my friends coming up to me who've been incarcerated like Commissioner Whitmore does, but
You knew them all.
probably.
Did you forget where we're from?
I'm just giving her a hard time. They're probably the same people. Yeah, I think the name change is actually a great idea locally. You know, I don't think it makes much of an impact outside of Manatee County, but locally it does make a difference. And I love the logo. I think it's a great idea. As always, you bring great speakers, and it went a long way towards educating us and keeping us, plugged into what's going on here at the port. So thank you, and thank you to all your staff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo Kevin's comments on the presentations. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed that. I enjoy learning about what's happening here firsthand from the people who are out there doing it every day. So thank you, and I hope we have more to come. Great job.
Commissioner Cruz?
I'm good. Thank you very much for everything today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but I got to.
Go ahead.
I don't think any of my constituents really know where the port or the jail is, but I just thought I would add my little tidbit in on that. But I just want to say thank you for the speakers today. You were both great and gave us a lot of great information, and thank you for being here with us. Thank you.
Commissioner Sancho?
Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it.
Wow, what a day that we've had. I mean, great presenters. I do want to reflect on the initial conversation when we talked about the name change. And we sat down, and I was concerned about that identity as far as individuals that I know. And yes, I do have some friends that have been incarcerated.
Are we back to jail again?
No, we're not back to jail. I think the difference is now there's a disconnect, and I think that's very, very important. And let me give you the real story about that. When we were preparing for our job fair, and we want to make sure we recruit individuals and let them know that we have jobs. If you're saying you have jobs at the port, certain people are going to say, hey, that's where the jail is. Right? And we need that disconnect. The services that are provided at the port impact this entire region. And there's a lot of opportunity there for jobs for individuals to get careers and obviously change things around in their life. And some of the individuals that have been incarcerated, some of the vendors or the entities that are at the port, I actually give them an opportunity or a second chance for them to come and work. But if you're trying to recruit them, and you say, well, yo, come on to the port. Oh, no, I just left there. I want to go back. So, we actually had this conversation, and I'm excited about the name change and the direction that's going, so you can have that disconnect. And some people may be able to relate to it, but being a lifelong citizen of Manatee County, and there was a time we used to come out and fish out here and things like that, but it was always connected to the jail. It was always connected to the jail, but being a $100 million industry, you don't want to be connected to a jail. You want to have your own identity. So we're excited. I'm excited about that opportunity. We laugh about it, but I think it's going to impact, especially when it's time for us to recruit and to get jobs and things like that. So I applaud the efforts. I applaud the efforts and the strides and the steps that we've taken, with those soft moves. And honestly, I want to congratulate everybody that's a part of it. That concludes my commissioner comments. Do we have anything else?
Good job.
Anything else? We will close this meeting out. Thank you.
Thank you.